Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where OP gets revenge against a Karen manager. Our next Reddit post is from Fireforge. Our company sends a shiny HR email. The subject line in all caps says, "Use it or lose it." We had to burn our remaining paid time off by the 30th or it evaporates into the sun. The same day, my manager announces in stand-up that due to quarter end, no one can take time off until the 1st. I asked how we reconcile not being able to take off and losing all our paid time off. He shrugs and says talk to HR. HR says talk to your manager. What a cute loop. So I opened the handbook because I'm a petty librarian when annoyed. Page 14 has this little sentence I never noticed. Paid time off requests not explicitly denied in writing within 48 hours are considered approved. There's also a note that partial day paid time off is allowed in 1-hour blocks. Thank you, legal team. I submitted 10 separate requests. 2 hours every morning next week, 2 hours every afternoon the week after, a random Friday 3 to 5 to watch a plumber, and 1 full day to visit my mom. I sent the request into our HR portal, which auto-emails the manager and CCs a shared mailbox that nobody watches. Then I went back to my tasks and set reminders. 48 business hours pass. No denial. The portal changes each request to approved. Green checkmark, confetti gif. Monday comes, and at 9:58 I put a cheerful note in the team chat. Hitting out. See you at noon. My manager pings me to hop on a client call. I reply with a screenshot of the policy and the portal approval. Silence. Then 3 dots typing. Then nothing. By Wednesday, our calendar looked like Swiss cheese. Half the team remembered they also had paid time off sitting around and started filling it in little blocks. Meetings kept colliding with green bars. Finance realized that if we didn't use the days now, they'd be paid out at separation later, which they hate. HR wrote a new post saying that we should coordinate, but approvals already granted still stand. My manager called a huddle to ask why productivity dipped. I said we're following HR's instructions to use paid time off. He said he meant in November. I sent him the original email timestamped this month. He sighed and said he never thought anyone would actually read the handbook. I used every hour of my paid time off, took my mom to lunch, and my plumber fixed the cursed sink at 3:40 while I drank tea. Next week, a new policy appeared. Paid time off must be requested in full-day increments during quarter end, and managers must respond in 24 hours. Thanks for clarifying. Truly. Our next Reddit post is from Relative Salad. My partner and I own a small 8-person company that shares a building with only a daycare. Our company consists almost exclusively of higher-level professionals, a couple of lawyers, CPAs, etc. So most have their own large office, plus a couple of common areas, conference rooms, a nice kitchen. All in all, it's about 3,500 square feet, which is obviously a lot for 8 people, but it's necessary for our line of work. Due to the size of the office, the lease has a parking provision which grants us exclusive rights to all 24 parking spots. What's also important is the daycare's parking lot only consists of about 10 spots in front of the building. The parents would use our parking lot to drop off, as the daycare's lot would be mostly full with their staff's cars, and even some of their staff would park in our parking lots. I didn't mind at all. We had over a dozen empty spots each day, and it was nice to have the mostly happy children around in the mornings and afternoons. Until a month ago. I started coming in a bit later, the same time as daycare drop-off. Our parking lot was crazy with parents and kids walking and parking. So I used their parking lot like they've done with ours for years. First day, no issue. Second day, their manager saw me get out and gave me a piercing stare. A week later or so, I did it again, and my car was towed. Not a warning or word from the manager or anyone at the daycare to me or our office. I went to the daycare to ask if they knew that it was my car and if some kind of mistake had been made. The manager came out and said that it was not a mistake. And in a very rude, demeaning tone, her exact words were along the lines of, "Unfortunately, we can't have the liability of non-staff and parents within our lot. And I'm sure the parents don't appreciate having to walk further either for an unknown adult like you in the lot." She looks me up and down, and I'm a totally normal-looking 30-year-old male. I think, at least. "Don't you have some reserved spots in the back? You really should park there and let us park here." With an eye roll, she walks off. I was happy that I held my tongue in front of the children, considering how effing angry I was, knowing it was not the time for conversation. A couple of days later, I told the same manager while we were outside the office that I wish she would have come to me before towing my car and costing me $600 and just asked for an apology. I asked my manager, since we share the back lot and the parents take up almost all of our spots in the morning and afternoon, can I park in the front lot the occasional morning as timelines align? My manager flatly said no, and basically gave me the same speech she gave the last time, at least not commenting on my appearance this time. I left things for a week, thinking it was over. Until, again, I had nowhere to park one morning. Having to wait 10 minutes for parents to filter out of our lot lest my car be towed. And who do I see but the same manager getting a spot in my parking lot before me even? I decided to comply with the manager's wishes and developed a plan. I contacted my building's owner and said, or more accurately lied, that due to compliance reasons with the state's license we're applying for, we need to have a gate installed with employee and guest pass access only on our parking lot. Our company would, of course, cover the cost. I got same-day approval from the landlord, installed 2 weeks later. I drove in early that first day after install. I tell you, the mayhem was well worth it. Watching from the corner window gave me a perfect view of it all. It started with daycare staff pressing all sorts of keys into the gate to try to get in, trying to park where they had been for months, years even. Their lot filled up completely. Then, parents started arriving. A staff member had to stand at the gate telling parents there was now no access. Their parking lot was basically congested with parents double parked taking their children in. Other parents parked a quarter-mile away. I eventually went down to give the manager a nice little wave and walked back up to my office. She gave me a piercing stare that just made me grin ear to ear. I guess she sent the owner a rather angry email about parking rights to the back lot afterwards and how it's crazy one small office gets the entire thing. Apparently, she didn't know that we had rights to all of it. I still have 2 years left on my lease with another option to extend an additional 5. So I have no plans on moving anytime soon from the office or my 24 parking spots. Some people like to wield what little authority they have like a club without ever realizing that other people wield much bigger clubs. Our next Reddit post is from Citizen Vince. I work at a casino as a dealer. We have a first in, first out way of scheduling dealers. So if you start at 7 p.m., you get to leave before people that started at 8 p.m. when they're able to close tables down and send you home. Pretty normal and straightforward. If more than one person starts at the same time, then who gets the option to leave first is assigned on a rotating basis. So if you're first to leave one week, you'll be the second to leave the next week, and the third after that, and then back to one. So one afternoon, I was reporting to work with 2 other dealers, all set to start at the same time. I was looking forward to a short evening, as I was the first option and had plans after work. I arrived 10 minutes before my shift, and I noticed one of the dealers who was starting at my shift was already dealing. They had started 15 minutes before their scheduled time, and they were the third option. Fast forward 6 hours, and we had tables that we could start closing. I'm stoked to get out of there when I look over and I see the dealer that started early leaving before me. I pointed out that I was supposed to be leaving before her, and she gave me a shit-eating grin and said, "Well, I started before you, so I had the first option." And then she just walked off all smug. I was super pissed and said something to the supervisor. He shrugged me off and said, "It's policy. First to start leaves first." Okay, game on. I knew this coworker had kids and had to wait for her mom to come over to babysit before she could leave for work, so she wasn't always early for her shift. I have no kids or obligations, so I started showing up 2 hours before my shift, just chilling. I would let the supervisor know that I was there in case they needed me to start early, which they always did. 3 weeks of this, and I held the first option on every shift I worked. The dealer who was all smug about starting early was getting frustrated and angry at me. Having to stay super late every night was wearing her down. "It'd be nice to get off before close just once," she said to me once as I was leaving early, yet again. I told her I was just following policy, and she was welcome to show up early to make sure she was always out first. 2 more weeks and many complaints to the boss later, the policy was changed. I hope that it was worth it for her staying until near close for over a month over that 15 minutes. I'm petty and I have a lot of free time. Our next Reddit post is from Jamul. I worked in the engineering department of a smaller manufacturing company of about 70 to 80 employees. My responsibility, among other things, was to handle any design changes. Previously, this was all handled by putting together a packet of actual paper documents that had to be shuffled from engineering to manufacturing. Sometimes ping-ponging back and forth if we were doing something complicated that needed input from various people within those departments. Eventually, the company started to implement a software-driven procedure that was supposed to eliminate the stacks of paper that would sometimes get lost on someone's desk. The problem was that our bare-bones staff didn't really have time to learn all the ins and outs of the software and refine the process to be truly efficient. Basically, the way the system worked was if an item was under review, you couldn't build it, you couldn't order it, and you couldn't even use any machines that were associated with that part. Sometimes, finishing the review process for an item could take weeks. I tried explaining several times that if we ever had to work on some item that's used in several of our products, this would bring everything to a screeching halt. My manager at the time understood this, but could never get all the people who needed to work on the software procedure to sit down and finalize everything. One day, I was tasked with changing the design of a hardware component that was used in every machine we built. I told my manager that as soon as I started the process, no one in sales would be able to enter an order for any customers until the process would be completed. He shrugged and said, "Do it," knowing that I was right. Within 30 minutes of getting started, a salesman came to my desk asking why he couldn't enter an order. I explained what was happening. He left, and soon after, the VP of the company was at my desk asking what needed to be done. So I told him he needed to corral everyone needed to hash out how the software was supposed to work properly instead of the half-assed, just lock everything down deal they left off with. He immediately called in whoever was on that list. It took a few days, as I recall, and the component in question was expedited to be approved within the week. To this day, I use this story in interviews whenever I'm asked one of those questions, like, give me an instance where you had to solve a major problem in the workplace. That was r/malicious compliance, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.